Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're here for another one of our Customer Summit recaps. This is episode 3, HawkSearch Hidden Gems. We got a great lineup of content for you today. My name is Jonathan Meyer. I'm one of the senior solutions engineers for the Bridgeline team. You've probably seen me in a number of these other webinars or other customer conversations. I'm joined by two other fine gentlemen today who our customers are probably intimately familiar with as well. I'm joined by Charles and by Kyle. Charles, why don't you go ahead and give a quick introduction for yourself there?
Thanks, Jonathan. Hi, guys. Charles Serini, VP of Services here. Been with Bridgeline for about 15 years now. I head up our project management office and the developer and the design groups, and happy to be here today.
Excellent.
Awesome. And I haven't been here for quite 15 years yet, Charles, but going on 3 years. My name is Kyle Mitzner. I'm Vice President of Customer Success here at Bridgeline. And with HawkSearch, I get to work very closely with our customers on ensuring their success and working through projects and all kinds of good things. But excited to present today.
Excellent. And we're about to get started into these HawkSearch Hidden Gems. So Kyle, I'll let you take it away here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead and cover this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan. And one key thing, and I talked about this a little bit last week when we had our webinar, but one key thing at our customer summit and why we wanted to do this series afterwards is we wanted to enable customers to utilize more features that are already included in their license. And so today we'll cover a ton of things in the workbench, pretty high level. But the only feature today that we're actually going to talk about that has an additional license cost is measurement conversion. Everything else is already included in your HawkSearch workbench and in your HawkSearch license. So definitely we just want to make sure our customers are getting the most of the tool and utilizing every feature that's available to them. And so that's really important. Of course, if you do have further questions, you need help getting something implemented, reach out. We're here to help you. You can scan the QR code. I'm sure you have all of our email addresses as well if you're a customer and you're interacting with us. But certainly reach out because we're here to help you guys out. So before we get started, I do want to call out one really important thing with HawkSearch, and that's data normalization. Most search tools, they do exactly that. It's a tool to do search. But HawkSearch has a ton of data normalization capabilities, both on how we ingest data into HawkSearch, but also on search time. And we'll review a couple of those features today.
Awesome. Let's get into it here. So the first one we have lined up here is A/B testing. And Kyle, I think you did a whole dedicated presentation on this one.
Yes, we did a whole webinar last week on A/B testing. So we won't jump too much into this because like Jonathan mentioned, just go back to the webinar last week and watch that because we did a pretty in-depth demo and presentation on exactly that. So definitely encourage everyone who's watching to go back and watch that one because it was really cool. And what I mentioned last week is that when we had asked all of our customers at the Customer Summit who was using A/B testing inside of HawkSearch, 0 people put their hands up. So I want to call it back out again today because we had 0 traction in A/B testing for HawkSearch, and it's built into the platform, and you can make use of it today.
Yeah, then again, just to reiterate, there is that whole presentation from last week. We just want to kind of call attention to it again here. Like you said, it is a really exciting part of the tool. So much so, we gave it its own presentation. Kyle, you ran that as well, I believe, with Jordan. But yeah, I think it's a good call out here again. Real great example to leverage existing functionality within the tool and be able to test and see these features. And again, really, we'll make sure that we get that communicated in the follow-up emails there with like a link to that other presentation or something. But good information to call out there. And so then next on the list here is our homework. Tracking.
Yeah. And Jonathan, I know you weren't able to make it to the Customer Summit, but
no, unfortunately,
I think I brought this up 3, 4, maybe even 5 times at the summit. I kind of lost count after a while, but the important message here is that if you don't have your tracking working and it's not capturing all your customers' interactions on your site and sending that data to HawkSearch, then you're missing the mark a little bit. And again, we're here to help you, but you have to get tracking working. It's so important. It's so important. And Jonathan, I think a little later you'll show us how to make sure it's working, or at least to check on it really quickly.
Correct. Yeah. And there's a number of kind of things that we can track, which is why it's so important. A lot of the functionality that that kind of underpins how HawkSearch works.
Mhm.
In terms of some of the automation that we can drive, recommendations, all of that kind of fun stuff. Even some of the features that we're going to discuss here in this presentation all kind of rely on that tracking to work. So you have this great kind of chart here that breaks down the different types of events. Anything that we should take away from this slide here in particular?
Yeah, I mean, just in general, the biggest thing to take away is that we track everything. So everything that HawkSearch does, we can track it. And one kind of cool thing, Jonathan, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but I know John and the product team have something really, really cool coming out for reporting on all this wonderful tracking information. We sat down a couple of weeks ago and we wanted to improve our reporting and take a look at that and see what we can do to kind of take our reporting to the next level. The one key thing that we noticed is that we actually have every single tracking event that we need. So we have all this data, we have it all come to HawkSearch, and to reiterate, we just want to improve our reporting, and the important thing is that we do have all the tracking data.
Excellent. Yeah, good deal.
Drives so much of the machine learning too that it's critical for the machine learning.
Yeah,
no, it's a really good call out there, Charles. Without this, you can't take advantage of the personalization sliders or anything like that. So good information there, and we'll show you when we get to the demonstration part. It's at least easy to see, is this working? To know if you need to follow up with your CSD or someone like that to take those next steps. So, kind of building into that, Charles giving us the great segue there into the next slide here of AI machine sliders. All of that tracking can lead into some of this functionality we're going to talk about here. And I know that the presentation I did with Megan maybe 2 weeks ago at this point also touched on this a little bit. But we, again, want to really highlight these things that we think are could be better used within that with our clients could be taking advantage of. Kyle, what would you say about the machine slider side that you have here?
Well, the one I'll really call out here is the personalized one. So we have the 4 sliders, the learning search, the orders multiplier, and the add to carts multiplier. Those are all sort of wisdom of the crowd, wisdom of products. I know, Jonathan, you always used to, or I'm sure you still do, speak of machine learning and the AI machine learning inside of HawkSearch that way. The one I like to call out is the boost for recommended items, because that one is personalized to each visitor. So we're tracking the visitor ID. To go back to tracking, we're tracking the visitor ID. We know their interactions on your site. We know what they're searching by. We know what they're clicking on. That boost for recommended items is personalized to each user. And you'll notice that even in the workbench, this is one thing when I first started with HawkSearch, I was like, why does this one have a massive boost? Why can I go all the way to 100 with this one? Well, the reason for that is because it's personalized. Whereas the other ones, they have boosts of, I think it's 3, Jonathan?
3, yep.
Or 3. The difference there is that if you have 10 users clicking on a product, that boost would become 30. Yeah. Where if you boost recommended to 30, it'll be boosted by 30 still, but on a unique and personalized basis.
Yeah, it works similar to like a boost and berry rule. That's the same kind of logic behind this, is it works in that same influence. So by making that slider have a little bit more range, you're able to kind of drive a little bit more of how much of an influence does that personalized boost have on your results. So some good information there. And we'll show you that as well when we get into the slide deck there. And Charles, I'm sure you run through this in your in your role there in terms of helping to help highlight some of these features and functionalities. This is a really critical one that we think, again, can be taken advantage of better.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the next slide here, because we've only got a half hour. We want to make sure that we're giving as much information as we can for you guys here. And just as a quick aside, you might notice that QR code down there in the bottom. If you've not attended one of these before, that is your fastest way to get to a specific customized demonstration for you guys. We're more than happy to kind of take the features and functionality we're talking about here and do a one-on-one session with you guys, make sure that it's tailored even a little bit more for you. We want to give you this information, make sure you're all aware of it, but if you're looking for a one-on-one session, reach out to your CSD or scan that QR code. That'll get you to the right place to set up a custom demonstration for you guys. But the next topic that we want to tackle here is one that I think is near and dear to my heart, because I think it's one of the coolest features that we've rolled out here within the last couple of years, is our Instant Engage. Kyle, what would you think about this one here?
Well, the thing I like the most about Instant Engage, I mean, the feature itself is amazing, but almost the story behind it, Jonathan, is one of my favorite things, because this was a feature request from one of our customers. And one thing I always like to think about is we build HawkSearch with our customers in mind. And anytime a customer puts in a request for a feature, we take that request very seriously. And this one was a very specific customer reached out to us and was like, hey, we want, as soon as someone clicks into the search box, we want to display recommendations. So before autocomplete kicks in, we want those recommendations to be displayed. So, well, we just built it into the tool.
Right.
And just to reiterate, I mean, any customers that have requests for features or something they'd like to see in the tool, this is a great use case or a great sort of case study of how we can actually just put those requests straight into the tool. And I think that the story behind it is really cool.
And we can, again, we'll show this off when we get to the demonstration portion here, but the thing that I love about this from my end is that it's really a combination of all the different kind of pieces that we've been talking about, from like the event tracking, recommendations that we're going to touch on. Like, there's all of this feeds back into this one feature. So it's leveraging the machine learning and the wisdom of the crowd for the trending keywords. It's lending the recommendations for top products or trending products. It's lending some of the reporting and analytics for category and facets. It's kind of taking all of the different pieces of information that HawkSearch is aware of and now able to present it back to you. So really cool feature there. Really helps with that idea of like product discovery, which is really more and more where we see search being a big benefit, is this idea of not just helping visitors find what they're looking for, but letting them see kind of the full breadth and width of your catalog.
Yeah. And Jonathan, one thing you might not know, really quick on Instant Engage, when we came back from the customer summit, or actually while we're at the customer summit, we were talking about Instant Engage and showing off how it works to customers. And we had an influx. Charles, I think your team had an influx of tickets because everyone wanted to turn Instant Engage on.
Yeah, among others as well, too. Yeah, we got busy real quick.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep that ball rolling here and keep getting people to want to return this feature on, because it is very cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's move on to the next topic here for measurement conversion / facet normalization. So this can, I feel like this, the title needs a little bit of a breakdown, Kyle. Break this down for us.
Well, the reason this one's on here, I hope that everyone that is a HawkSearch customer or looking at HawkSearch knows about measurement conversion. When we think about measurement conversion, I think we're mostly thinking about on search terms, if that makes sense, Jonathan, instead of thinking about it in data normalization. From data normalization sense. There's two parts to measurement conversion. There's search. You can normalize the search query itself, but you can also normalize on index. So while you're indexing, you can actually normalize data coming into HawkSearch, which is really cool. And that's what this one's more so about. And I think we have an example of normalizing a facet, which is really cool. And this gets really powerful. I know for distributors, we have another customer who has 5 attributes with 5 different types of measurements, even though it's the same attribute. It should be the same attribute.
Yeah.
What we're doing for them is just taking those 5 attributes, smashing it into one, and then normalizing the data so all the measurements look the same on the front end, and obviously in the actual HawkSearch index, all those measurements are normalized.
Yeah, I think this is neat because, like you said, we usually talk about this from the search perspective of being able to standardize. Oh, I put in 2 feet versus 2 FT versus 24 inches, and being able to understand all of those different values from a search perspective. But like you're talking about, the other end of that is that your catalog might have those same kind of values as your data to say, oh, the length of this is 2 feet, the length of this is 2 FT, the length of this is 2 dash, the length of this is 24 inches. And so when we think about that from a filtering and a faceting perspective, left-hand navigation, typically the way that would work from the HawkSearch end is all of those values would appear in that left-hand navigation. So we can use that same technology that we're driving the search end of that to help, like you said, kind of crush all those values down, normalize them, and present a singular value for them. And that's something that you can also then define on, saying, well, I want it to say 24 inches, even if all of the data says 2 feet, or I want to capitalize all of this, or however you want to get that presentation to look. It's just really cleans up the experience. And as we have found time and time again, eliminating those kinds of hiccups in the search experience and the filtering experience only improves that bottom line. If I can find what I'm looking for easier, I can buy what I'm looking for easier. That just increases that average order value.
Yep, absolutely. And we're talking about it in terms of measurement conversion, but I think it really can be anything.
Yeah, we definitely have examples where it's not feet to inches. It's cartons to boxes. It's rolls to pallets.
Maybe your
make an
data
order.
says Charles and you just want to change it to say Jonathan,
Right? Who would ever
literally
do
anything.
Why would you want to do that?
That's
Yeah. That was a bad example. I'm sorry.
So on to the next topic here. I want to make sure that we're given a little bit of time to make sure we run through some of the demonstrations here. But I think this is one of the cooler ones. This will be a little bit more maybe in the presentation. With the workflows, there is a lot of kind of ability for a customer to move very naturally from one end of the tool to the other, but sometimes you need to know that you can do that, and we want to make sure that you're aware of that. And we'll show you as we move through the demonstration portion. But Kyle and Charles, I want to make sure that we have a chance to talk. Any thoughts on this process here that we have?
Yeah, I mean, just in general, the workbench was built for merchandisers and marketers, and definitely being able to move quickly and get your tasks done quickly is an important thing. That's, I think, always been around in HawkSearch. It's always been sort of a driving force behind how the tool works. So just being able to get around quickly and be able to create rules fast, and that's really what this one's all about.
There's a really cool thing that we'll show you in a second here of kind of like how you can get direct access to a lot of rule creation when you're looking at the preview. So that smart bar that you're seeing there is a feature. We'll call attention to that here in just a minute.
Yeah, and funny story there, Jonathan, is we were talking about this yesterday, and you just named the smart bar on me. I was like, what? And you'd actually you've been using that term for a long time, and
for those of you who don't know, I've been doing this for 10 years. So there's some terminology that maybe I've heard once or twice in the past that hasn't gotten full range. But Smart Bar is what we used to refer to that as, and I think it's a good name. So
we brought it back.
We're bringing it back.
We're bringing it back. Yes,
we're bringing Smart Bar back.
I like Smart Bar. Okay. And then we have our SEO features. Jonathan will, I think, quickly highlight these, but we have WooRank built into the tool, of course. So on your homepage, you can just get a high level review of what your SEO score is. And if you are a HawkSearch customer, definitely reach out to our CSD team, because we do have a promotion on for any HawkSearch customer, and the ability to log into WooRank essentially for a nicely discounted price. That being said, we also have some SEO built into our landing pages, and then we actually have a whole separate section that's specific for SEO.
We recognize how important it is. That's what I will say there. And I think the important thing to highlight here from a hidden gems perspective is this is meant to be, the tooling that we have is meant to be supportive of what your SEO strategy is. This isn't a tool that comes in and says, this is the way that we believe SEO works. It's a tool that is meant to support what your existing SEO strategy is. Meaning that you're not having to throw out your existing strategy. We can support what you're currently doing, because every client that I've ever talked to has a slightly different take on what makes the most sense for their business and what has been working for their SEO strategy. And so we want to make sure we're not getting in the way of that, but helping drive that functionality.
Absolutely.
Let's go ahead and move on to the more technical end of things here, but a powerful feature nonetheless. So keyword replacement. And you have regex here. Let's dive a little bit into that. What's going on here, Kyle? Yeah,
so and in hindsight, I probably should have put this slide next to the measurement conversion slide, because they're very similar in the sense they both use regular expression. And for anyone who is not familiar with regular expression, don't get too scared from this example. There's a couple examples there. It is a little bit of code. I think it's actually maybe the only section, Jonathan, in the workbench that does have a tiny bit of code behind it.
Yeah.
But there's a very nice tool. I think everyone probably uses it, or anyone that's familiar with regular expressions, called regexer. I know Stephanie uses it all the time, but it's all it is doing is it's finding patterns and replacing search terms. So I kind of talked about the in measurement conversion how we can convert and normalize data on indexing time. Mm-hmm. This one's on search time. So you can see in the example, like for the first example there, I put in a regular expression. Like I said, don't panic that there's actually code on the screen. But after the 1, 2, 3, I put a space. And what it's going to do is it's actually finding that expression is matching that pattern, and then adding, you can see I just added a -12 at the end. So you can think of all the different ways if you have SKUs, and maybe the SKUs have a leading 1, 2, and customers only type in the final 3 digits, or in this case, it's reverse. If they're missing the last 2 digits whenever they're searching for a SKU, you can see how powerful this can become. It finds a pattern and replaces the search query.
Yeah, the way I've been able to break this down in the past is to talk about, if you're using like Word or Excel and you've done a find and replace. It's
Exactly.
Control F, pull up that little thing, and I'm like, oh, I'm looking for every time that I put in there spelled wrong, and I'm looking to correct it to the correct version. I can find that version, I can replace it. This is like that on steroids. We can do like programmatically, hey, we've caught this pattern here, and there's a lot of different things that we can do to standardize that, to normalize that, to make sure that the search request gets handled properly by that kind of find and replace functionality.
Actually, question for you, Jonathan. And I know we're getting a little bit tight in time. Can you use regular expression inside of Excel? I think you can.
I think you can. Yes, I believe you can.
Okay, so think of it that way. There you go. Find and replace.
Find and replace.
Find and replace. Find a pattern, replace it.
And now for closing out the kind of slides here, I know we have just a couple more left before we get into a little bit of that demonstration. But we want to make sure there's a few other things that were important to highlight again out of this idea of like hidden gems. And Charles, you brought this up, and I think this really speaks to kind of your background and what you deal with, in your role there with the company. I think this is great information to capture here. The indexing failure notifications. Can you speak a little bit about that then?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are basically the three most important notifications that you should set up in the workbench, and they're pretty easy to set up. There's instructions down there. Just go to the workbench settings, email notifications. The top three, indexing failures. So this basically just alerts you if your indexing run has failed. Could be a number of different reasons, but the key is that you get a notification letting you know that it's actually failed. The second one, index with insufficient records. So maybe your index has completed successfully, so you won't get the first alert, but you'll get one if you only have a subset of records. So say you have 50,000 products in your data set, the index run, and it only indexes 3 or 4 or 10 of them, right? You want to know that, because then something has gone wrong and I need to take action to find out what's happened. And then the last one, the stale index, basically what happens here is maybe your job that triggers the indexing has failed on your side. It's not kicking out of your ERP or your CMS, and we haven't had a successful index run in X number of days. So these are basically the three alerts that you want to set up so that you know when these failures happen.
And the cool thing here, Charles, I did not know that we had a stale index alert. That was brand new. Speaking of hidden gems, we were just talking about how I've been doing this for so long, and Charles is like, "Yeah, no, here's this whole great little notification you can have." That is a super great report to have there in terms of being able to. It's a really common thing that we run into.
Yes, actually. And Kyle, you mentioned a little while ago that we get a lot of these recommendations and things from customers. The indexing with insufficient records and the stale index were actually requests from customers. So, we hear you, and we hear you loud and clear when you have good ideas, and we build them into the product.
Yeah, and I think this came in like pretty recently, Charles, or I guess last year sometime. I don't know.
Earlier in the year, in the summertime, and it made the last release.
It felt very recent, at least. But, great call out, Charles. I like it.
Yeah, and then again, customer feedback. If you guys have ideas, feature requests, report requests, things like that, we always want to hear those, because that's how we help build out the tool. Like, obviously, we have our own kind of idea where we're going and building out features, and have our own roadmap, but love to get that kind of feedback from our customers of, hey, why don't you let us know when our report is not, or index is not run since 10 days or whatever. It's great information.
That's how we grow.
That is exactly. Yeah. And kind of on that topic of growing, let's continue the conversation with you here, Charles, around services engagements. And you have some really great kind of things to take away from this here. So I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah, this is another thing that we've seen from the customer conference. Most of the time you get excited. You're implementing HawkSearch, and during your implementation, we get your data indexed, and we get the search results running. We get facets, and it's easy to get excited and then say, okay, well, we're at the end of our project. We want to roll out and get this live. And then we'll deal with phase 2, where we bolt on other things like instant engage, recommendations, smart search. And they often get pushed out to phase 2, but then phase 2 never happens. So you're missing an opportunity there by not knocking that out during your initial engagement. But you do have an opportunity now to actually implement. So the search is also always a work in progress. So you want to keep up with your advanced tuning, ongoing tuning. So, keep working at your settings, keep improving your results, look for opportunities to improve. We also mentioned that the tracking feeds a lot of components with HawkSearch, and the reports are one of them. So implement the tracking, get the reporting, analyze the reporting, come back in, do your tuning. And then you can also, at any time, contact a customer success director if you need assistance with tuning and any of these feature implementations.
Yeah, I think this is a great kind of wrap up, because there's all these, like we're talking about, hidden gems, but a lot of the reason that these become hidden gems is like you're talking about here. You get to a certain point, like, oh, well, we'll do that the next phase. And that really it does a disservice to what you can leverage with HawkSearch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't wait to phase 2. I like that one, Charles. Don't wait. Yeah.
Well, we've got just a few minutes left here. I'll very quickly
speed run, Jonathan.
Yeah, right.
We got speed run.
Not gonna be the first time, won't be the last here.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and share my screen here, and what I can do. Go ahead and share my screen. We'll make that bigger here for everyone. What I'll do here, I'll run through very quickly some of we'll tackle the homework first there, because that is one of the things we mentioned several times now. I want to make sure that you guys are aware of kind of where you can see that information. So we mentioned the event tracking is one of the key ways that we can drive a lot of the functionality. So even like the reporting and all of the machine learning within HawkSearch, there's a really simple way to see, is this working for me? Do I have this wired up properly? If you're not sure, once you're logged in the tool, you can go into the admin section, and then there is a tracking preview within here. Within this tracking preview, you're going to be able to see any of the events that are firing off. And so some of these are kind of natively built into the tool. So search and things like that, those are always going to be kind of wired up. In theory, those should always be there. So you want to make sure you're seeing things. You can go up here to this event type box, and we can start to type in, oh, I'm looking to see, do I have event sales? That's a critical component to a lot of the functionality. We can set that up. We can search based off of that, and we can then see, okay, we are getting these signals through. If you go to your admin section, to your tracking preview section, and you're looking at this and you're not seeing this information, that is a warning sign that your event tracking is not wired up properly. A key signal to go ahead and reach out to your CSD and make sure that we can get this set up. Because once this is set up, a lot of the other functionality we're talking about here and pulling that into the tool can help drive that functionality then. On top of that then, so once we've got that all kind of worked out here, let's show you the kind of the extension of that. Now that we've gotten this idea of being able to pull back in our event tracking, what we can then do is in that Hawk AI section, that AI multipliers. So what Kyle was talking about before, we have kind of those 3 ideas in terms of we have those kind of 4 ideas of what we can present in terms of influences. Well, the learning search multiplier, the add to cart multiplier, the orders multiplier, all of those are going to be using event tracking signals to understand, well, what are visitors clicking into, and what are visitors adding to their shopping cart, and what are they converting off of. We were just looking at those event sales in the back end of the event tracking. That is going to be what drives our orders multipliers, if we can see that information. There are a lot of best practices that we bring to the table for this. So again, another good reason to reach out to your CSD, help with this conversation, is we can provide some kind of best practices. But really, this is meant to be some sliders to kind of drive how important is each part of the process for you. So the clicking into the products and where are those products being clicked on, the add to cart signal, the orders multiplier, generally it kind of escalates in values as we go through. But then last and certainly not least, there is this boost for recommended items, which, as Kyle was mentioning, is a fully personalized boost. The ability for you to then say, hey, I want to really drive that personalization. And again, like he was highlighting, you'll notice the values are different here. We've got a 1.3 versus 50. As we were talking about, this really works like a additional boost rule. So like, oh, I want to promote new items would be a boost rule. This is, oh, I want to promote personalized items. It works in a very similar fashion. With the time that we have left, I think a really cool thing that we can touch on, since we did call attention to it, it was apparently a big hit at the Customer Summit, was the Instant Engage.
Yep.
The Instant Engage is just another functionality of our keyword search functionality. It has its own dedicated area here for Instant Engage. Basically, you're able to then turn on and off the different areas that you'd like to have enabled. So your trending categories and facets, trending products, trending keywords. If we go into something like our trending products, we'll click edit here, just to give you a quick example of the kind of controls that you have over this. You can enable trending items through a very simple on-off toggle. But the important thing again here is that we can't drive the trending items unless we know the events that are happening to say, what are people looking at? What are they clicking into? What are they purchasing? What are they adding to their shopping cart? This is, when you toggle this on, if we don't have the event tracking already wired up, this isn't going to work. But you can then have some other controls in terms of, well, when should we disable this functionality? Because then fall back into your classic autocomplete. And then what is the time frame for something like trending products? We typically want to look at more recent information. But again, if you want to see kind of, well, I made some changes. How will this look? What is this going to look like? You can always see that when you're looking at this in the preview. So if I go into the preview again, we can go ahead and click into this. We're going to go ahead and get that instant engage automatically suggesting our trending products and our popular searches. I know we're at time here as well. Again, make sure you're scanning that QR code because we'd love to have a fuller conversation on kind of all of this. But the takeaway, the last little hidden gem I'll show you, since Kyle was unaware of it as well, is this bar down here at the bottom is what we refer to as our smart bar. And there's this little gear over here in the right-hand corner.
And actually, Jonathan, it's a little bit hard to see the smart bar. But we
covered by the
it's getting covered up a little bit.
But that QR code is further encouraging you to scan that. But there is a little gear that you can't see on your screen, which will then you can hopefully see now the menu that's popped up where I can then add a boost and vary rule. I can add a banner campaign. I can create a redirect rule. And this is really cool because if I do a search here, let's say I want to see for like gloves or something. Maybe I've got a gloves category page. If I click into that, I can say, hey, you know what? I want to add a redirect rule. I just want to take people to my landing page. The tool is smart enough to know where you were at when you selected that, and it'll already build out the conditions for this. So this redirect trigger already has the keyword set of keyword contains gloves. Now all I need to do is give us the URL that I want to redirect to. So,
and it even works if you put in like if you click a facet or you do something else on the page, it'll bring you right to this page and have your facet selection already triggered.
Yeah, it is a very, very powerful functionality there.
You know, it's one of my favorite ones, Jonathan.
Yeah, well, that's I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead then. We're at time. I know we ran a little bit over here. I want to make sure that we're wrapping up because there's a very exciting thing kind of finishing off this next webinar that we're having. This is Customer Summit Recap is going to be episode 4. All-star lineup here. Not that we weren't joined today by a killer crew, but next time we're going to have Ari, we're going to have John, we're going to have Jordan talking about smart search and a big reveal. If you were at the Customer Summit, you might have a little bit of an insight into what that is. If you missed it, though, we're going to give you the scoop behind the scenes here on what we're currently working on, the big projects that are going on. Very exciting stuff. Make sure you get signed up for that. Again, it's going to be Thursday, December 12th at 9 a.m. Pacific and 12 p.m. Eastern. For everyone else, thank you guys for joining us. Scan that QR code again. We love those QR codes. They're going to go ahead and get you in front of us to get the full demonstration since we only got a chance to get through some of those features. Would love to show you those one-on-one. Kyle, Charles, thank you so much for joining me today and walking through these hidden gems.
Yep. Thanks for having us, Jonathan. And we might have to break up the features next time because there are a lot of them.
That's how good the tool is. So thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us today. Really do appreciate it. We'll see you next time for the big reveal.
All right. Bye, guys.